So we're now well into this championship season, but we still have a few weeks to run of this transfer window, and I'm sure that the business will continue to hot up across the championship board as we get closer to deadline day. Plenty of done deals to go through in today's video, as well as some rumours to go ahead and dive into as well. So as always, if you're going to enjoy, do leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular championship content. Before we jump into any transfer news though, we do have the Monday night game to quickly go over. West Brom drawing 1 apiece with Watford, and quite an interesting game in the end. I did think we'd learn quite a bit about both sides actually throughout this one. It was West Brom who were very much the aggressors throughout the whole 90 minutes of this game. After about 10 or so minutes, I don't think it's even much of an exaggeration to say that West Brom could have been about 3 goals up by that point. Daniel Bachmann had the performance of his life in net for Watford. Jed Wallace was a constant threat down that right hand side for West Brom, but once again, and how many times did we bring this up as a problem for West Brom last season, their conversion rate being a massive problem for them once again in this game, creating several big chances, but nothing was quite sticking for them in the final third. We obviously got that news about an injury to Daryl DK as well, which is quite concerning for West Brom going forward this season. And then completely against the run of play, Ismail Assar goes and scores possibly the goal of the season. We're only in game week 2, but sees David Button off his line, and then from inside his own half manages to go ahead and lob him. From that point onwards, it was West Brom very much putting the pressure back on again. Eventually they do get that goal back through Carl and Grant. The second half, the momentum somewhat dies down a little bit. I think we could see West Brom tiring by that point, but they were still very much the side having the better chances, having more of the ball. But we saw it in game week 1, how deadly that Watford forward 3 can be on transitions and on the break. In the end, they win the penalty, and I mean, it's typical really, you know, Sarr can score from his own half, but not from the penalty spot. That was Watford's golden opportunity to go ahead and win this one. West Brom also had some openings in the second half, but each side had to settle for a point in the end. I think it's fair to say that Watford's midfield struggled to deal with West Brom throughout this one, and that was a little bit of a case as well in game week 1. I think that's still an area where Watford probably need to address. Their front 3 will score a lot of goals, but West Brom really could have had this one dead and buried in the first 45 minutes. Conversion rate being a problem for them once again, but it was an entertaining game to watch. So do let me know down below, what did you make of that game? But now let's go ahead and hop into some completed transfers. So we saw Norwich City completing a deal for Chilean midfielder Marcelino Nunes. We saw him in the Norwich shirt at the weekend. He made his debut against Wigan. Had a few nice touches in that game, but I think there's still more to come from him. 22 years old. It's interesting that Norwich have dipped into the South American market on more than one occasion this season, but I'm sure he'll be a player who will probably grow as the season goes on, with this being his first season in English football. John McAtee completed his move over to Luton Town, and he has now returned back to Grimsby on loan for the time being. Blackpool completed the loan signing of Arsenal youngster Charlie Patino. Looked to be a really promising addition for the season. We mentioned in a previous transfer rumour roundup video how well Michael Appleton historically tends to use the loan market, and this seems to be another example of that. Just got a new contract at Arsenal, will add a little bit more into their midfield. Obviously they missed out in the end with that deal for Brannigan, but for getting a player with the pedigree of Patino on loan for the season, I think it's promising for Blackpool. Millwall completed the signing of Birmingham goalkeeper Connell Truman. He comes into that squad as a backup option. I have to admit, when I saw how old Truman was, I couldn't actually believe it. He's 26 years old. I had it in my head that he was way younger than that, but yeah, when we saw him getting given those opportunities in the Birmingham shirt, just didn't quite seem ready for the limelight then, and I mean, going into Millwall now, he's only going to be there as a backup option, you'd imagine. Sheffield United completed the loan signing of Manchester City youngster James McAtee, who joins them on loan for the season. They seem to have quite the relationship building up at the moment, with getting a few Manchester City youngsters in through the door. We mentioned this deal last time on the rumours part of the transfer video, and I like pretty much everything about this one really. 19 years old, obviously come up through the Manchester City Academy. Looking forward to seeing how he can cut it in the Championship. Cardiff completed the deal for Spurs forward Kiana Tete, a big strapping forward coming into this Cardiff lineup. We mentioned how they were looking a little bit light in this area, and he will obviously add more depth into that position. Only 20 years old, massive frame about him. Spent the second half of last season out on loan at Cheltenham, where he got 3 goals and 3 assists in 13 appearances. Be interesting to see how he gets on in the Championship. Hull City completed the deal for Timothy Lotatala, a goalkeeper who adds even more depth into that department for them. Obviously, Nathan Baxter's been out with an injury so far this season. Matt Ingram doing really well in his place at this point in time, but he adds even more depth into that area. Burnley completed the deal for Manuel Benson, another addition coming over from the Belgian league. Particularly excited to see how he gets on, especially going off his debut. Got brought off the bench in that game against Luton and looks to be different to what Burnley already have in terms of being a little bit more dynamic in one of those wider roles. So yeah, very much looking forward to seeing how he gets on. I think that given some of their outgoings, Norwich were probably still looking a little bit light in the middle, and they've gone ahead and added Aaron Ramsey in for the season. He's coming on loan from Aston Villa, spent last season out on loan with Cheltenham. And we saw Wigan completing the signing of Nathan Broadhead. He's coming over from Everton on a season-long loan. We mentioned in the previous video, however, how Wigan, still probably needed a little bit of refining in those attacking areas, and this one I think is a brilliant capture for the season. Sunderland were also said to be interested in him. Had a brilliant loan spell out there last season. In just 15 starts in League One, scored 10 goals last season. One of the most clinical forwards in League One last time around. Yeah, really good deal this one for Wigan. So those are the deals we've seen go through in the Championship over the past 7 days or so. Now without any further ado, let's hop in to the transfer rumours. And starting out with Rotherham's Dan Barlaser. Reportedly so Blackpool have had a bid of around about £1 million rejected for the Rotherham United midfielder. Rotherham themselves will be more than keen to tie down Barlaser to a new long-term contract, and Blackpool going in with that bid of around about £1 million was never going to go ahead and get this one over the line. I think they were lowballing Rotherham with that bid there. Last season in League One, one of Rotherham's best performers, most consistent midfielders in the division as well. 9 goals, 7 assists, and I'd even argue that last time Rotherham were in the Championship, Barlaser was really a player who caught my eye. Obviously he came over from Newcastle, one of probably Rotherham's most saleable assets at this point in time. He is 25 years old, has previously showed that he can cut it in the Championship, and clearly Blackpool see the value in a player like him. Now Blackpool have previously shown, while they didn't get the Bronigan deal over the line in the end, they clearly have demonstrated that there are some finances to be go ahead and spent on this squad. You know, the compensation they'll have got from Neil Critchley departing earlier in the summer will of course add on to that as well. It will be interesting to see if Blackpool continue to put the pressure on this one, or they do look to pursue other targets, because you would feel as if they'd need to go you know, quite a bit higher than that £1 million mark they're at the moment for this one. And sticking with Blackpool, Millwall are said to be interested in Blackpool striker Shane Lavery, reportedly so. They've already had an attempt knocked back for the striker. It's interesting to see what the future will hold for Lavery at Blackpool. He obviously started last season like an absolute house on fire. Perhaps there's the argument that he was a better fit into that Critchley system more so than how Appleton's going to look to play going forward in that Critchley 4-4-2. Sort of a poacher like Lavery seemed to be a good fit into that system, being that second sort of striker, but under Appleton we've only seen them getting a couple of substitute appearances off the bench so far. So yeah, Millwall still keen to bolster their forward line. Will be interesting to see if they go in for another bid for him. And it's looking like Ipswich are pushing for a move for Blackpool centre-half Richard Keogh, reportedly so, with Ipswich willing to lay down a 2-year contract for the veteran defender. Now I have to admit, when Keogh first made that move over to Blackpool, I really wasn't convinced by that one. I thought it wasn't great business from Blackpool, but to be fair to him, he had his moments for Blackpool over last season and really grew into it as the year went on, and probably did have that wealth of experience that the rest of that side were lacking. I do think he'll be a miss from this Blackpool side going forward this season, and will be interesting to see how they go about replacing him. Switching over to Middlesbrough, they've been linked to God knows how many strikers throughout this window, but it's looking like they have got a deal over the line, or at least a deal in principle, for American striker Matthew Hoppe. He's coming over from Mallorca in La Liga, and he's had quite the interesting career up until this point. He came up through the youth system at LA Galaxy, got picked up by them as a youngster, then had a few moves within America, then made his move over to Schalke, had a decent debut season with them in the Bundesliga, scoring 6 goals across 22 appearances, and then recently made his move over to La Liga. Chris Wilder's made it no secret they're after strengthening their forward options, and reportedly so a fee of around about 2.5 million has been agreed for the American striker. He is someone who will look to get in the box on the end of those crosses that are being pinged in by Giles and by Jones on either side. And for the player's sake, he's looking to stake a claim to getting back into their USA team ahead of the World Cup as well. And sticking with Middlesbrough, they're also keen on tying up a loan deal for West Brom midfielder Alex Mowatt. This one would be a really interesting transfer actually. I'd be particularly interested to get West Brom fans' opinions on this one. Mowatt is a player who I think hit the ground running at West Brom under Valérien Ismaël, but as the season went on, I got a bit more frustrated with his performances really. And as of right now, probably isn't the most natural fit into that West Brom side, and he's, fallen down the pecking order in that respect. If there was a manager to go ahead and revitalise a player like Mowatt, though, getting back to how he was in his Barnsley days, I think Chris Wilder is exactly that sort of manager. And from West Brom's perspective, I mean, they would be strengthening a, direct promotion rival by loaning him out. So yeah, West Brom fans, be interested to get your take on this one. I think from a Middlesbrough point of view, this will be a decent move. Obviously, they need more bodies in midfield to go ahead and compensate for the loss of Tavernier, and I'd be on board with this one. Right wing back who could be on the agenda for Preston North End is Manchester United's Ethan Laird. Manchester United and Preston already doing business in this window so far, with Alvaro Fernandez coming in on loan, and potentially we could be double stacked on both sides with Manchester United fullbacks. I would be absolutely all over this deal as a North End fan. Thought he was really good with Swansea, especially during last season. Obviously got to see a little bit of him at Bournemouth as well, but just what we're after at this point in time in terms of strengthening that right hand side. Someone who can be progressive on the ball, good in possession, and take on a man as well. Everything we're sort of lacking in that area at this point as well. Watford were also said to be interested, so it'll be interesting to see who does come out on top in this one. And Burnley continue to up their interest in Liverpool defender Sepp van den Berg. He was on the bench for Liverpool during their season opener at Fulham, but didn't get off the bench, and another loan move is set to be sanctioned for him to go out. Honestly, I would be surprised if he did end up back in the Championship again. I thought that after that season and a half he'd had with Preston, the next stage in his development will probably be a Premier League loan move, or maybe a loan move out to somewhere in the Bundesliga or something along those lines. But the way that Burnley are set to be going this season under Vincent Kompany, maybe this could be a realistic move for him. He'd be an absolute diamond for Burnley over the course of the season, I've got no doubts about that. And yeah, it would be painful to see him in the Burnley shirt after how well he did at North End over this last year and a half. But yeah, Sepp van den Berg to Burnley appears to be edging closer, although there are a number of other clubs who are also said to be interested in him. And it appears after initially being turned down by Jovan Cabral, Burnley are going back in with an improved offer for the attacking outlet. Burnley continuing to add to their squad. Last season he was out on loan in the Serie A with Lazio, but only made a handful of appearances during that time. And if Burnley do manage to get this deal over the line with that improved package that they're said to be offering the player, this one will be another really exciting addition. And reportedly so, Burnley have gone in with a bit of run, about 2.5 million for Cardiff forward Isaac Davis. This one is an interesting one. Burnley obviously still keen to improve on their current forward options. We spoke previously about not having I suppose recognised goal scorer, and Davis doesn't exactly fit that bill just yet, but what he is a bundle of potential, and I think that Cardiff fans see that at this point in time. Last season, the vast majority of his appearances did come on off the bench. He had 10 starts for Cardiff, 18 appearances from the bench, 2 goals, 3 assists in that time. Cardiff fans, what sort of fee would you be wanting for a player like Davis, only 20 years old? Let me know down below. Leicester City's Hamza Chowdhury has been linked with a loan move to both Watford and West Brom, both clubs in need of bulking up their midfield a little bit. I thought that was obvious from Watford's game on Monday night, how they were overrunning midfield. I think they definitely need more options in that position at this point in time. And West Brom, if they are potentially going to be losing Alex Mowatt, it would make sense to go, dipping into the loan market for a Premier League midfielder to come ahead and replace him. And it's looking like Hull City are pursuing a deal for Watford fullback Jeremy Ngakia. Interesting move this one. Ngakia, a player who seems to have fallen down the pecking order at Watford, so a move for the sake of his career would seem natural at this point. He's an interesting one as well. I did think that last time round in the Championship, when Ngakia did get his chance, consistently in that Watford side, thought he looked like a good player, and at a young age as well, looks to be a sensible move that Hull are going in for here. But guys, there we have it. Those are some of the most recent transfer rumours that have been going on around the Championship. As always, any other deals, let me know in the comments down below. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Apart from that, I'll see you all in the next one.